So from a 5G monetization perspective, operators have three specific challenges. The first is around business models, or the lack of clarity in business models. The big concern there is, we still don't know what the killer app for 5G is, because 5G predominantly is based on providing new services to the enterprise market or the industrial market, and there is a lot of concern or confusion around what the killer app would be there. And usually operators, when they actually want to deploy a new monetization system, they usually go to the market with a specific requirement for what the use case is, and therefore what are the associated systems necessary to bring that, to deploy it successfully, and so on. So with 5G, they are essentially starting with a blank slate, at least in terms of industrial use cases, mainly because there are far too many use cases on the table without clarity on which one would really take off, right? So that's the first concern, lack of clarity on business cases. The second one is more from a technology perspective, because 5G actually requires modern software methodologies, and you need to have, or most operators are at least planning to have, cloud-native microservices-based frameworks, and many of them, at least from a monetization perspective, are planning to deploy greenfield stacks, that are disconnected from the rest of the system, so that they can actually experiment new technologies on this stack. And the concern there is that the technical know-how is still a problem, because you need to have the right set of people with the right set of capabilities. It's not easy to hire the people, they are expensive, and they are rare to find the right people for this kind of modern software methodologies. And the third concern is one of organization structure and culture, because what essentially the adoption of a modern technology framework requires is that operators need to embrace new processes, new way of delivery models, and so on. You talk about DevOps, you talk about microservices-based architecture that actually has high velocity, continuous integration, continuous deployment, and so on. And all of that actually calls for a change both in the culture, the structure, and the process frameworks. And that, for most operators, especially for ones who have been around for a while, and as a consequence of that have large, well-entrenched team structures, this can be a huge pain point, getting to shift the organization structure. What that means, to summarize, lack of clarity on business models, concerns around technical know-how, and finally organization structure. These three things together encompass what I see are the main challenges for operators, in effectively monetizing 5G use cases. From an operator perspective, what they are looking for in their ideal partner is, A, they need to have some cross-industry experience. The entire enterprise vertical for operators is about going beyond the traditional telco market. They are out to capture a market that has mostly been on the fringes of their focus thus far, for most operators at least. So what they want is to have some experience or some expertise rather about what is it to actually do business with those verticals outside of telco. Industry experience, that certainly counts. They also need an agile partner management platform. So operators traditionally have had some form of a partner management platform, right from the days of premium SMS, you used to have a number of partners who would come on board and sell their services, and operators would take a portion of it and so on, and they would have platforms to support that. But the new age B2B2X use cases that we are talking about is on a completely another level. You're talking about multi-dimensional, multi-step value chains, and sometimes the operators may need to stand behind the entire value chain and charge for all the users in the chain on behalf of maybe its customer, which is one or two levels deep. The operator might actually need to enable transactions between customers who are on its platform, and obviously they would get to keep a small portion for enabling that. But what I'm trying to say is it actually brings to the fore many use cases, some of which we haven't even thought of yet. So underlying to all of this is the necessity to have an agile partner enablement or partner management platform, that has support for dynamic settlement models. It can support easy onboarding of external partners or external content providers and so on. So that is probably going to be the second biggest factor. And the third one I would probably say is to invest in developing ecosystems, and I'm not talking about app ecosystems. Most people generally tend to think about applications, like an iOS app store or something like that. What we are referring to is an ecosystem where partners can come on board and create and offer services that might be compelling to the end user, and it might not even be consumer, it might be a enterprise. So there has to be an initiative within operators to have thriving ecosystems, because that actually improves the attractiveness of staying with the operators, generally improves stickiness. So that might be something else they have to focus on as part of the B2B2X strategy. So just to summarize, there are three things that Nokia brings to the table in terms of how it is positioned to help these operators. The first is obviously access to several leading customers and a ringside view of what's going on there. The second is a broad portfolio, especially on the network side, and well positioned to support end-to-end deployments. And the third is a cross-industry experience with all your initiative that is underway outside of telco. And from an operator perspective, this is a crucial mix of ingredients that they need, especially the leading edge operators who are positioned towards the future, because that's where most of the uncertainty is.